think that, we have guidance here. This has come from our students. It's come from us. They say hi, by the way.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Thank you for sitting down with us today. This is a guide. It's not a rule book. We don't have to follow everything that I ask you.
Okay.
Like I said, what's most important is that we're capturing what's important to you and what you feel like is important to your
And I believe what's important to the listeners.
Yeah.
I might have a tendency to go off and talk about something that would be boring for a younger person.
Well, we appreciate anything you share with us, and not everything will be included. We're going to sit here and talk for a while, but this video is going to be less than 10 minutes long, I think.
Okay.
So we'll have to cut some stuff out, but that's why we sit here and shoot for a while.
And I figure you guys know what you're doing, so.
Yeah.
Are you okay if I take the glasses?
You want them?
Is that okay?
Yeah.
If you're more comfortable with them, we can leave
Like
them on.
I say, now you're responsible to find them for me when I need them back again.
That'd be great.
That's where I keep them most of the time.
Okay. All right. If you want them at all, that's fine.
No, I need them mostly for reading, but street signs, driving.
Okay. All right.
Great.
We're good.
Okay. So, Jane, we're going to start out with some pretty basic stuff about you, and I want to assure you that if we don't dive into the deeper stuff right away, we're going to have an opportunity to talk about
Okay.
it. We want to learn just surface level stuff about you, then we're going to dive into your experience at RMU, then we're going to get your thoughts and feelings on women's leadership in general. Because
Oh, dear.
obviously-
Okay.
Yeah.
You already heard some of that.
Because obviously this is a big moment for RMU, inaugurating our first women's
Yes. I was so excited.
Yes. All right, so if you're ready, we'll just go ahead and get
I'm ready.
started. First, please tell me about yourself, your name, your age, your former or current occupation, maybe just a little bit about your family.
Okay, I've already told you my age, but my name is Jane Archer. My age is 80 years old. I almost said 80 degrees. I've lived in this area most of my life. Well, all of my life. The other part was lived in Aliquippa, and the rest is Hopewell. Other than the fact that I moved to Ohio 10 years ago, and after 9 years said I just got to get back to Pennsylvania because all my family's here and my roots are here. So other than that, yes, I am interested in women a lot. A lot. Because I have seen repression. I mean, I don't want to put it like somebody was not allowed to eat or anything, but there's been things happen over the years that I can see where women aren't given the chance they need.
Thank you.
But the Lord didn't see fit to give me any daughters, so so I tried to teach my sons that.
Nice. What passions did you have when you were younger?
Oh dear, that was a long time ago. Jeez. What was I interested in the most is what you're just asking. Boys. That's true. I was, I can't say anything in particular that I was gung-ho about, no. I mean, I would try anything. I still will try anything, but just to see what it's like. But no, there was no guiding passion in my life. Sorry.
That's okay.
Other than those boys.
No worries. Can you tell us what year you were born, and then talk about the first 10 to 15 years of your life?
Oh dear. I was born in 1941. I was born 4 days before Pearl Harbor. In my mind now, I think what my mother must have, the anxiety she must have suffered being that much pregnant at that particular time. My big recollection in the world picture was Korea. That was when I was old enough to know something bad was going on. Other than that, we lived in Linmar. I don't know if any of you know where Linmar is, but it's a housing project that was put in for the guys that came back from World War II. And it's just apartments, but there was tons of people. There were always people around. And I got where I don't like if there's no people around. I like people. Most of the, no, not everybody, but you're all included in that group. So. And then went on to school. I did okay in school for all the harder that I tried. So I feel like I have a small amount of intellect because I got through. Didn't get held back or anything. And where I lived, there was always somebody to play with. Because if you were mad at this kid, you just went down the block and there was somebody else you could play with. So, yes. And then as we went on, I started seeing things that I didn't think were right. That's when I started, probably it was about 12 when I started thinking about women. And because I knew I was going to be one of them someday. And I thought, we're not getting the breaks we're supposed to be getting. This just isn't going the way I think it should for the women. In our house, if my father didn't like beef roast, we didn't eat beef roast. It was never a matter of you can have this and you can have that. And when I raised my kids, my favorite was if you don't want to eat what I cooked, then have peanut butter. And it worked.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit about something you said. You mentioned that you were born 4 days before Pearl Harbor. What do you think life was like for your mom growing up? Like, what year was she born, for example? And how is your experience as a woman maybe different from your mother's experience?
Oh, totally different. My mother was born in 1913, I believe. And her mother died when she was 8 years old, so the whole picture is different for her. It was for her. And she was very much a female chauvinist. She definitely went with the old time. If the man didn't like it, it wasn't done, and that sort of thing. But she wanted desperately for my sister and I to have some education. I really have to hand that to her.
Thank you. Let's talk about, do you have anything to add, John? Okay. Let's talk about education.
Okay.
At what age did you realize that education was going to be important in your life?
I'd say probably, it depends on the teachers, They put the idea in your head first. And I would say probably around 6th grade when I thought, at that point, I did not mature early. So I was not thinking of boys or anything at that point. I was thinking, wonder what it's going to be like when I grow up. And that's my mailman. Hi.
Okay, we can take a quick pause. We'll start over.
Okay.
Is he?
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
cool.
gone.
I'll just ask the question.
Okay.
again, so we can get it from the top. At what age did you realize that education was going to be important? In your life?
Okay, as for the rambling. 6th grade, I'd say. I would definitely say around 6th grade.
Got it. Thank you. Let's talk about, you mentioned your mother said that you said that she wanted you and your sister, I believe you said, to get an education. What family members or leaders in your life specifically empowered you to further your education?
I was trying to think. My father, definitely my father. He was all for it. He was giving me books to read when she shouldn't be reading that stuff. He said, "Hey, she'll figure it out." He let me read anything I wanted as long as I was reading. And there are very few college graduates in my family up till my son's generation. And I believe when Richard graduated, he was one of the first from college.
Did either of your parents go to college?
No.
What did they do?
Pardon?
What did they do?
My dad was a milkman, and my mother actually was Rosie the Riveter.
Can you tell us more about that?
When the war started, at World War II, of course, the men were all going off to war, and the women, she said, I don't remember, but she told me, she said, and so they were hiring women to do men's jobs, and which they were capable of doing. And it was really funny because my mother was a very tiny woman, and they liked it. They could get her to crawl down in to do the rivets without it was already built, and they could say, okay, Irene, you can get down there and do that. And she did, and she made good bucks, so she was happy about that.
That is so awesome.
Yeah.
My grandmother also had a Rosie the Riveter position in the Pittsburgh area, and so I'm so proud of that.
Yes,
legacy. I think
yes.
that's
Every time I see that picture, I think, it's my mother.
Yes, that's awesome. All right, so Jane, I'm going to ask you to take us back in time. What was the moment that you learned about Robert Morris University, and can you tell us what originally piqued your interest about attending?
Yes, definitely. It was my father. My father was, I think I've already told somebody that story. My father, when I decided I didn't need to go to college, I regret that. But then they suggested, some of my friends said they were going to business school. And I thought, well, that would be okay. And, not take 4 long years, it would just take a year. And so they looked around for different schools, and my mother was money conscious, of course, she had to be. But my dad said, no, Robert Morris is the best. And it was back then the best business school. And that's where I wanted to go. And it's where I went.
What about, you studied secretarial school.
Secretarial science.
Why did secretarial sciences feel important to you, and how do you think that your skills you learned helped you in your life?
Oh, tremendously, tremendously. The number one thing that my mother actually said she noticed right away is your vocabulary. And it's hard to compare myself now to myself when I was 18 years old, but yes, the more you learned, the more you thought, I want to even sound better, or I want to do better, or I was never any good in math until I got there. And they said, now you got to remember, you're going to be dealing with your own money too, so you got to learn how to do this stuff, And they taught us even how to sign checks, how to write checks, not sign them, how to write a check, and all kind of different. Actually, we had a charm class too.
Tell us about it.
My charm class was against everything women believe in. They taught you how to get in a car without showing too much. They told you how to get your cigarette. Men used to light women's cigarettes. That was considered polite. So they taught us how to do that. Never leave it hanging in your mouth. Things like that. Also, the fact that a woman my size should wear high heels, which is where we ran into problems. But I hate high heels. They hurt your feet.
I agree. I never wear heels.
And so we only had charm on, I think it was Tuesdays. And I rode the bus from Pittsburgh, or from Aliquippa up to Pittsburgh. And then I had to walk about, I don't even know how many blocks. It was a lot. And I couldn't figure out, I guess I wasn't too bright. I couldn't figure out what to do about the high heels, which were killing me, till somebody said, you wear tennis shoes and you take the shoes with you. One of the happiest days of my life was when that girl told me that.
All right, you graduated in 1961.
Yes.
I would love to hear a description of, I just have this picture of you walking down the Pittsburgh streets in downtown Pittsburgh. And what was the first year that you went to Robert Morris?
60. Well, actually it was 59. It was 59. I graduated in May, and I think I started school in July. They give you the option of either starting in July or later, and I couldn't wait to get started, so.
Great. So paint us a picture. It's July 1959, and you're walking down the street in downtown Pittsburgh. What are you feeling? What are you seeing, hearing, smelling?
Well, if you've ever been to Aliquippa, I might say it was nicer back then, but just compare that with Pittsburgh and you go up there. I felt like I was a very independent, sophisticated young lady. I did indeed. And I'll tell you another story. You can shut me up with the stories if you like.
No.
I got to be friends with, girls from all over that area, our area. And that was a wonderful thing, too. But my one friend was, her name was McConaughey, and she was, of course, very Irish. And it was St. Patrick's Day, and I was walking from the bus stop to the school. And I stopped in at the flower shop and bought her a green carnation. And after that, I didn't have to wait for a red light or nothing because it was, early enough for traffic. The police all stopped traffic for me to go across with that green carnation. It's one of the highlights of my life.
Oh, that's really special. Were you nervous about starting school?
No, I wasn't nervous when I was a teenager, not at all. No, I thought, I can do it.
Where you mentioned your mother and your father were big influences in your life. To you, why was it important to be confident? And how did you draw from your family to find that confidence?
My mother wanted me to be able to take care of myself with a man missing. You know what I'm saying? What the girls nowadays take for granted, I hope, that they could take care of themselves if the man wasn't around. And so she did pretty much instill that in my brain, that you have to, and then if you meet someone you love, fine, marry them, but make sure that you can take care of yourself.
You remind me of my grandma. She grew up in Alquipa, and she graduated from Seton Hill with her bachelor's in English in 1948.
God bless her.
I miss her a lot.
Yes.
She, the legacy of working hard and being able to be independent was instilled by her parents.
See?
Her, and it has trickled down to me.
That's wonderful.
What was an average day like at Robert Morris?
Okay, now, we were very restricted. There were a few accounting students that were males, but it was mostly girls in our classes because it was secretarial science, And back then, there wasn't even a male nurse, so that was the division. So the big part was, I lived out here in Hopewell, and I had to get into Aliquippa to get the bus to Pittsburgh. So traveling was a big problem, especially if the roads were bad. And my dad didn't let me drive till I was 17. Oh, but definitely did. They never bought me a car. No, I bought my own after I got married. But anyway, yeah, you take this big, long, old trip to Pittsburgh, and then once you got there, they had classes defined, and I'm sure they still do. You have to. And we went to this class and this class and this class and this class, and that's what we did. There was no time for any kind of study halls or anything like that. It was, you just did all that and you got on a bus and come home, although I did find time to shop at the department stores.
Love it.
Yes.
My grandma also loved shopping in downtown Pittsburgh. Her and my grandfather would meet under the Kaufman's clock every weekend, and they would go on little trips together over the weekend.
Oh, how nice.
Were there any of your teachers that you remember specifically?
I do remember a couple, but I don't remember their names. I warned you.
Tell us about them, though.
The one teacher, really, she apparently had never been married, but it was funny. If a girl would start talking like she had to ask her boyfriend first, or like one girl did get pregnant. Of course, when I was in high school, they did that too. But she said she was at don't hook your wagon to a star or something like that. She was very adamant about the fact that you take care of yourself first, then you think about getting married. And I remember her, and she had an influence on me, because I'm repeating her, and I'm sure she's gone by now because she was a little older. And of course, at 18, everybody looks old but you, And then there was another one who seemed very, very mean. I mean, if you did something stupid, she would tell you it was stupid, and I was scared of her. But after it was all said and done, I figured out I learned a lot, probably more from her than some of the other ones. Yes.
Thank you. First of all, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. Let me pick your brain a little bit about how women supported other women on campus back then.
Back then, very little. Other than you always, get your little group. And even though it was so far away from my home, I had my little group up there. But if you did something they didn't think was right, they would tell you and not back you up.
Do you think things are different today?
Yes, I do. I do think that the girls are more inclined to stick together, and I like it.
Absolutely. I am going to shift. I think this is a great segue into some of the questions that our students created for you. These are young students. One of them is actually a freshman who just started 3 weeks ago, and she was really excited to work on this project with us. what is one of your fondest memories from your time at Robert Morris?
I can't think. I mean, I enjoyed going to school. I enjoyed it, and one of the nice things was that bus ride was an hour. I could do my homework on the way home, and then I was free in the evenings. That was nice. But just I don't know, just the fact that that we were all working together for the same ending. And the teachers gave us the feeling, at least it gave me the feeling, that they wanted me to succeed. I mean, almost like it was personal, which of course it wasn't, but but they made you feel that way.
I think that RMU has retained so much of that spirit personally.
Yes.
Over the last several decades.
That's
And,
great.
yeah, so I'm happy to hear that.
Yes. Well, my son went there for 4 years, so I had a little experience, but that was still back in the 80s, so it was still a long time ago.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. What do you think was your biggest takeaway from your time at RMU?
I think my biggest takeaway was that I could do this. I could get a job, I could walk in and talk intelligently enough and hold a job. And I do remember my first payday vividly. It was in December, and my dad's birthday's in December as well as mine. And so there was a fancy restaurant in Ambridge, and I said, we're going to go there and we're going to have dinner, and I'm going to pay for it. And then I felt like, I thought I was rich.
I love that story.
And he fussed over it too. He was like, oh, this is bad. Like he had never eaten out before, but it was really cool.
Where did you work when you got the first paycheck? What was your first job out of?
Drabo, over in Neville
Could
Island.
you tell us a little bit about that?
About my first job? Yeah, it was in a steno pool, my first job. And the woman that ran the steno pool was another one that I will take with me. Her name was Margaret Kick. She will go with me forever. And she was that way. If you did something really stupid, she would say it loud enough for everybody to hear. So you were like, this is never going to happen again. And it was good for me. Someone else, I don't know, maybe they would not have been a good idea. But yeah, I remember her. And then at Dravo, because they were shipbuilders, I don't know if any of you are young enough to remember Dravo, but they built ships. I don't know how big a ships or whatever, but we got to go when they christened them with the champagne or whatever they used. They would let us all go down and go down to the river, and let us watch that. That was probably the best time I ever had. Although had I lived closer, and I rode buses back and forth at first. So I couldn't mess around, but they actually had a swimming pool and playgrounds and things for all the employees, which doesn't happen anymore, but it did happen back then, and I think that was a good idea.
I agree. We should have an employee playground at RMU.
That'd be nice.
Yes, yes.
Here's another question from one of our students. Can you walk us through your kind of career path? And what are some of the challenges you found on early in your career as a woman?
There was, so many challenges. I won't even get into details with you against a woman. Yes, back then it was very difficult. I think there are still challenges. I don't think they're all gone. But I was what you might call, I used to call myself an itinerant secretary because I worked when we needed the money. I started and I worked at Dravo, but then I got married and then I had 2 children, and then I only worked when I had to. Not the family needed the money. And so as I went forward, I noticed how much easier everything got because you weren't, first of all, upset all the time. Am I going to do this wrong? Da-da-da. And here you go. Several places I went to for interviews, and even after I was hired, they said to me, when I was interviewed, they go, what school did you go to? And I said, Robert Morris. And they said, oh, well. And I got hired most of the time. And same thing with after they hired me. It's, where did you learn how to do this, Robert Morris? Oh, they were impressed. Yes. Yeah, so I had that feeling for the school.
Yeah, it's a special place.
It was for me. It was for me because it was the first chance to go out into the world, you know.
I love that. Can you tell us something you wish you could have told your younger self when you were first given your first leadership role?
Or I would have told myself to be sure of your subject, to go prepared, always go prepared. If you are wrong, admit you're wrong and go forward from there. That would be about what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's very sage advice. Let's see. In regard to Robert Morris, what kind of representation have women had in the past at the university, and how has that changed?
Well, at the university, you have to remember it was a business school when I went there. So 9/10 of the students were women, children. Well, they were children too, but they were women. And the woman that ran the school when I first went there was a woman too. I don't know what I'm sure there was someone above her, but she pretty much ran the place.
Tell us about her. What was she like?
Oh, she was very glamorous and very, oh my, yes, very pretty and very, she was into it. She was totally into it. I will make you a secretary if it kills both of us, you know. So, yeah, she was good, and I don't remember her name.
What kind of positions were women given back then at the school? Did you have a lot of women professors, like you mentioned?
Yes. Yes, we did. But once again, you have to remember that we were learning how to be secretaries. Mm-hmm. And at that time, there weren't very few male secretaries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you did not go to secretary school, what profession do you think that you would have pursued?
You know, I think now, if I had had the brain then, not that my brain's any bigger now, it's just that I've lived a little, I think I would have gone into something like a therapist. Or something like that.
Got it. Thank you. Let's talk about your perspective about having a woman as the university president.
I'm thrilled.
If someone told you in 1959 on your first day of Robert Morris that there would be a woman as the university president in 2022, how would you have reacted? I would have thought that's a wonderful idea, but I don't think it's going to happen. Because I think about this, not that I was allowed to go into bars, but there used to be in Aliquippa this little bar, and there was a big sign that said, tables for women. And I never could understand that. I would say to my dad, what do they mean, tables for women? It means a woman wasn't allowed to sit at the bar is what it means, but I didn't know that then. When I was not a child, bigger, when I was growing up, a woman wasn't allowed to sit at the bar, except my uncles. And my mother had 3 brothers, and my dad had 3 too. And if we ran into one of my uncles down there, they'd say, come on, I'll get you a pop. And you'd go into the bar, and they would put me on it. And I would think, I'm getting away with something because I'm sitting at the bar.
So women were not allowed to sit at bars.
Mm-mm.
Why do you think that is?
I think that is by way of saying you can't take care of yourself. You can't handle it. So we will put you at this little table, and we will have the fun over here.
What would you say to people now? If you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, what would you
Well, I would say to the women, come on, if we gang up together, we can get this going.
Love it, love it. Let's talk about solidarity amongst women. You said you're all about women's lib,
I am.
which I love. Why is it important for women to support women?
Oh, because we have to boost each other up. We women, I'm sorry to say this, ladies, but we have a tendency to say, her hair really doesn't look that nice, that color, she should change it and things like that. No, don't even look at that. Look at what she's doing in her life. Think about what's going on and see if there's any way you could possibly help her.
Why do you think women can make great leaders?
I think women can really be serious about it. Not that men can't. This is not I'm not picking on the men thing, although I've been known to do that. I think that the women can look at it from a different angle than the men do, and say, wait, this can happen this way, or it's particularly when you get an employee, let's say, that's having a problem, the woman will talk to that employee and say, I know you're having a problem, but you got to realize we have to get this work done, that kind of stuff. I think they're really good at that.
Yeah, leading with compassion, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
Nicely put.
Thank you. Yeah. We try to teach our students that to be a great leader, it doesn't mean leading like a man.
That's right.
It means leading as your own authentic self. And I think that people like you have really paved the way
Well,
for people like that.
I hope I've done a little bit,
Absolutely.
Nothing will compare with that pantyhose thing, though.
Here's an interesting question that our students pose to us. Are there any women from the past that you think deserve more recognition than they have gotten in terms of leadership at the university? Or anyone people might not know about that played a crucial role at the university?
I worked for, I don't know if any of you would know her, Joanne Sipple. She isn't there anymore. But I worked with her at, probably you could say as a secretary part-time when I was a little older. And I don't know, there was something about her that I think she was a good leader.
That's good. I'll have to look her up after this.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that job and what the university was like when you came back as an employee?
Well, she was demanding. There's no doubt about that, but that was her personality,
So it would have been, about what year do you think you would have been back as an employee?
That had to be in the 70s.
So at that point we were a junior college or a college, somewhere like that?
You were a college.
Yeah,
It was a
so
college.
It had evolved. What was it like then coming back to this? Were you in Moon or downtown?
I was out in Moon.
Okay, so tell us about what the Moon Township campus was like when you were employed in the 70s.
Well, I could see where it had grown, of course. Everything was so different. When we started, we had our offices in a Carlton house. They rented the whole floor. And we weren't allowed to go anywhere else there, by the way. So we had to get straight up there. We had a back elevator, so, because there was guys having whatever guys do when they go out of town, things going on, and they didn't want us. They were protecting us, so to speak. Anyway, the difference being the variety of males and females, that we had people from Saudi Arabia coming now, and I met a gentleman. He was from Africa somewhere, but my son roomed with him. He was a chief's son, and this is a beautiful thing. I was working in the dean's office at that time, and he came, and my daughter-in-law had stopped in with the baby. That was my first grandchild, and he walked in and he saw that baby, and he asked his name, and he blessed him, and I was so impressed with that idea, That and the fact that my son said they were all sitting around. I suppose they were drinking beer or whatever. And he said they were talking about hunting and different things about hunting. And this guy from Africa said, what do you hunt? And, of course, they said deer, turkey, whatever. He said, oh. And they said to him, what do you hunt? And he said, lions. Rich come home, he said, and I thought I was a big deal.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
How do you think the university has changed from 1961 to 2022?
I don't personally have too much experience in 2022, but I can see, I can't even find my way around. I went up there for something that was going on, and I got in the wrong parking lot. And I'm sitting there waiting for my son, and he finally calls me up and said, where are you? And I said, I'm in the parking lot. And he said, yeah, but you're in the wrong one. And so, things like that. And then you've got all the sports. There was no sports when I went there. And I got to talk to when I went to this one dinner, I talked to one of the chefs who had gone to Robert Morris, and just all the variety of things that's going on. Yeah, it's changed. In fact, it's actually better because you have all these things going on, and these people are maturing in more ways than one. You know, it's not just learning how to do something; it's learning how to live with it.
That's great. It's a wonderful quote. I love that. Let's talk about women's liberation.
Okay.
You said you love women's lib. You were born in what year again?
1941.
1941. Where do you see yourself in the history of women's liberation? What role have you played?
I would not think that I had done anything dramatic. I just sneak like to teach. Like my one granddaughter was telling me one day, she said, "When I grow up, I think I'm gonna marry a doctor." And I said, "No, when you grow up, you be a doctor." Just that kind of an influence, not anything I've done
I think that's really
in the
powerful.
public.
So good.
Chill. I just got chills.
That's great.
What role do you think your generation of women has played?
We are split. There are some to this day in my age group that still think if your husband doesn't like roast beef, you don't have roast beef. If your husband doesn't like curly hair, you can straighten your hair, whatever. And I think that we've been indoctrinated into that, and we actually have to think about it. I say the curly hair for obvious reasons, but yes, we have to really concentrate where it's coming natural to some of my grandsons, they reproduced my two kids. I said, you know, be fruitful and reproduce. They did. But some of the guys even, they just automatically assume that they should be doing some of the cooking. They automatically, and that's just base things, but that can go on to bigger and better things too. Not saying I'm going to tell you who to vote for, which I have known to happen. And when my husband said to me, who are you going to vote for? And I said, that's private. And he said, well, I think I should be advising you. And I said, I don't think you should even know who. And I never did tell him. So we have to, in our minds, keep this. And I wasn't trying to start a fight or anything, although it probably ended up that way.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing. This is a really powerful question that our students gave us. What do you want to tell the future generation of women attending RMU?
Well, I want to tell them, first of all, to be a person before they decide to get married. This is a thing that's been bothering me. So many of us got married so young and had children so young. Not that I'm sorry I had my children, because I'm not. But that they never gave themselves a chance to mature as an individual. I know so many women my age that can't stand to be alone at all, because that's what it's been for them. That's what their life has been like. And I think they should worry about getting themselves equipped before they go on to think about marriage. Mm-hmm. And that's probably one of the reasons there's been so many divorces.
Thank you for sharing. For you personally, what does it mean to have a female president of Robert Morris?
Oh, I'm just thrilled to death. I am. And I am fortunate to have met Michelle socially. Not on the job or anything, but I have met her, and she is, she's quite the character. And I love it, She is, you think of yourself, in my mind, you think, oh, she's got to have a doctorate. She's got to have all this schooling, and yet she acts like anybody else. You know, so yeah, I think she's going to be great, because I think she's going to see the picture on both sides.
Yeah, I totally agree. What advice would you give to a young student who is 18 years old, just got to campus, and is feeling really nervous and feeling like they don't have what it takes to be a leader? What advice would you give this young woman?
Oh, wow, that would be a tough one. That would be, well, you would just have to tell them tell me why you can't do it. You know, you really have to think about that. So you're here. You're already enrolled in Robert Morris. That's the beginning. That's a beginning, so I would have to say you've started.
Yeah. How should young students hold on to their dreams and stay motivated?
That's I think it's tougher now than it was even when I was young. The only thing they can do is really in their own mind say, this is something I want to do, and I'm going to do it, and I can do it. I think that's the worst thing for all of us when we're young is we say, I don't think I can do that, and you give up.
What did you say to yourself if you ever felt like giving up? What would you say to yourself throughout your life?
Well, no, I'm almost, I hope it's, nope. I pray. I pray. So I feel that, I almost said I don't want to offend anybody, but if I offend somebody, that's your problem, not mine. And yes, that's, the Lord has really been with me during the toughest times in my life.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I'm going to pivot to a few questions we have from the WLP staff.
Uh-oh.
Yes. What does education and financial independence do for women?
Everything. It definitely puts you in a position to never have to say, and I have heard young girls say this, well, I'm going to get married because I have nothing else to do, or what.
Would you tell the story you told us about trying to buy a car?
About what?
About buying the car?
Oh,
You
yes,
told us
definitely.
to start
Yes,
over
this
from the
was,
beginning.
like I say, this was probably in the early 70s. I worked for, who did I work for? Oh, Texaco. And Texaco was one of the front-running companies that paid a decent salary, really decent salary. You got paid for what you did, not for who you were. And my husband worked for Duquesne Light. He was a lineman. And I wanted to buy a car. And he said, okay, we'll go pick one out, because we went in different directions in the mornings. And I said, no, I want to go buy a car. I don't want you to come with me. I want to go buy a car. And I picked the car out and everything. And oh, it was the worst car you could have ever bought. It was a GMC, the big, we called it the tennis shoe. I can't even, they weren't out very long. They all fell apart. It was horrible, but I don't want to go into that. And I could not, I went to the bank, we were making similar money. They said, no, your husband has to sign. And I said, no, and I ran it and raved, which I'm good at. And they said, if you want that car, you will bring your husband in. And that's what I ended up doing. He thought it was hysterically funny. Ha ha ha, you need me. But I got the car, which was a piece of crap. I had to get rid of it the next year.
How do you feel now that women do not need their husband's permission to sign for credit?
I think it's wonderful. I mean, of course there are women that will take advantage of that and mess things up. But there were also men that would take advantage of not handling it correctly either. So you can't say men or women in my mind in this. I think that there's no reason women should not be taking care of money, because most of us do it behind the scenes. I've done it over the years. Anytime I was in a household, I was the one doing all that stuff.
Thank you. It was a really powerful story. I'm going to ask you another question that has to do with the past. You graduated in 1961. You were a young woman in the 60s and the 70s. How did you feel watching the women's movement come to life during those decades?
Oh, I was thrilled. At the time it first started, I had 2 little kids, and there was no way I was going to march with anybody, because who's going to watch the kids? But I was all for it, yeah.
What do you think of the women's movement today?
It's almost non-existent today. I mean, it's not that it's non-existent. They're not in the forefront. I think we need to get up there. Like I said, I don't want to get political. Please forgive me if I say something political, but this Roe versus Wade thing, we women got to stand up and shout out, because, it's not even affecting me personally, but for the next generation, yes.
Thank you. No, that's really powerful. How do you practice women's leadership today? Like, beyond doing things like this and supporting your grandchildren, like you said, like, what do you think your role is now?
Is now is not as much as in the past, not near as much. I mean, I was very, very active in the church. I worked with the kids that were going for joining the church and different things. They had to take classes. And no, I'm not doing near as much as I'm kind of like retired. And that's shameful because there's nothing wrong with my mind or my mouth.
Well, I think what you're doing today is incredible, and this is going to be played for some really, for some people who are eager to learn about your story. I know that my students are so excited for Dr. Patrick's inauguration.
Me too. It was just, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, definitely. What makes you hopeful for the future?
When I see someone like Michelle, when I see someone like her having worked her way up the way she did, and I think, yes, I don't want this to be a society where we put the men on an island and bring them over just in case, I want us to all be equal. That's what I want, for us to be equal.
Why do you think gender equity is important for the world?
Same reason. Same reason. It's. I want us to work together. If you meet young couples or even old couples where they actually work together, it works better.
Definitely. Why do you think that male allies are important for feminism and the women's movement?
Right now, it's very important. Yes. When you get a man that'll say, "My wife and I share the responsibility. We share the raising the kids. We share running the house." It's such a great example, and they both seem happy. I know couples like that, and you're like, "Wow, that's wonderful."
I love it. Thank you. All right. That is very thorough with all the questions I
I
have.
have a couple things.
Yeah.
So when Rich,
Do you want to switch? Do you want to sit?
I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm all right. Yeah.
Okay.
So when Rich first mentioned that when Rich was going to college and thought about Robert Morris, what were your perceptions of Robert Morris at that time?
Well, I knew enough about Robert Morris because I was already working there.
Oh, you were working there at that
Yeah.
time? Okay.
Yeah. I was happy about it because I said, I think you will get a good education. And there were a lot of people. Dr. Moritz was one of the deans that I worked with, and he just impressed me so much. And
What other individuals do you remember working with? Just men, women, anybody? That just individuals that maybe were.
now I told you about the name problem.
Okay.
I said,
President Sewell. What about him? Did you have any interaction?
oh
with
yeah,
President Sewell?
not personal, no.
No, okay.
Not my. I mean, of course, I knew who he was, and we had spoke when we saw each other, but no,
Okay. Dr. Nicholson, did you have any?
no, that
You
must.
would have been after Dr.
Yeah.
Nicholson, I didn't know. Okay. I think we need I'm going to feed you this line, like a solid introduction. So if you could say, like your name and you're a proud graduate of the Robert Morris Secretarial School, but in your own words, right? I just think we need that like opening shot. So if you could just tell us that.
Okay. Hi. My name is Jane Archer, and I graduated from Robert Morris in 1961. I'm proud to say that my son graduated from Robert Morris in, I think it was 1971. No, that's not right. That can't be right. 81 must have been, 20 years later. And it was fun to go back, and it was fun to work there and to see how it had grown and how proud that a lot of the people were even to be working there. And I was very delighted to spend that 5 years that I did working there, yes.
So I know you called Michelle right after she was announced as president. If you could start off by saying, when I learned Michelle was president, I called her, and then tell us about that call.
I did, and I told her how pleased I was, and she was like, well, I'm doing it for a lot of people. And I was just totally delighted. And she, of course, was happy, too. And
What kind of advice do you have for Michelle?
I don't think she needs my advice. I seriously think she can do this on her own.
What about a message of congratulations that we can just, I know you've already done that in person, but maybe just could share with us a message of congratulations to Michelle.
Okay, yes, indeed. saying this for all the women who have gone to Robert Morris, who have graduated, who have not graduated, and also the men, because it's coming about there as well as everywhere else that we are much more equal. We're much closer than we were years ago, and to have someone like Michelle to lead us, I think that's going to be a milestone. It's going to be just remembered forever.
This is wonderful. So many great things. Is there anything else?
Is there anything else that you want to say that we haven't covered today?
No, I think you're very thorough and very helpful, by the way. Thank you all very much, because I'd said to my son, if I say anything wrong, will they take it
Of
out?
course. We will certainly pull the very best of this. Now, do you happen to have any pictures or anything from?
I did. I had some report cards, but I gave them to somebody at Robert Morris in
So we
the,
have them in the archives.
yes, in the archives. Yes,
Oh, well, then great.
yes, yes,
I was hoping you had something that we could utilize, but if you
yes.
Already
The
donated to
girl
the
took
archives.
pictures of them too, because
Oh,
this was when I don't even remember what I went to. Oh, it was the President's Ball or whatever they call
Gala,
it.
the
awesome.
100-year gala.
Yes.
Last year, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And he pointed me out because he
Iris.
said I was a hero. I think because I had my son there too. But, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, that's great. We'll certainly find that stuff. That'll be a nice.
I still have my diploma, but I'm not giving it out.
Mm.
Can we take a picture of it?
If I could find it, you could. I'll have to look.
That's
I
okay.
can give it to Rich.
Well, that's okay. I didn't know if you had it handy. It's okay if you don't. Just think.
Yeah,
We just,
I don't
we're
wanna-
just- we're just so happy to have this moment. I want to be sure we're getting
Yeah, I'll
as much of your story as you possibly could share. This has been wonderful.
thank you. Thank
Really
you.
nice.
Can I ask you to send a quick message to my students at the Women's Leadership Program?
Yes.
What do you want to say to them? There's about 100 of them.
Oh my, yes.
Do you want to do it right into the camera for them?
No, that's
Yeah?
okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
These girls are probably so far ahead of me that I was at that age that I find it difficult to even advise them of anything. But I'm sure there's a few sitting in the back row. I see you there, trying to hide. Just do not back down, ladies. Keep it up. Keep up the good work, and we will go far. We need to get together and improve this. Nothing wrong with men. I like men myself, but we women can do this. We can just make things better if we only work together.
Yes. We'll probably
That
use
was-
that
Ah.
as a prize, actually. yes.
No,
Thank
this
you,
is great.
Jane.
Thank you. Yes, this has been.
Thank you, guys. It was
Wrap, yeah.
We
you made it